Of Tuesday, June 13th, the Ripon City Council to order, and Boy Scout Group 414 will lead us in the pledge, and then afterwards, please remain standing for the prayer. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Join me in prayer. Gracious Father in heaven, we thank you for this opportunity to gather and to conduct the business of this community. We pray for all those who participate in the meeting tonight, especially for those who make decisions that will affect the lives of each person here. We pray that decisions will be made for the betterment of our community, and we ask it in your holy name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, 414, and Tom for the prayer. At this time, we'll go to roll call.
Councilmember Daniel DeGraff.
Here.
Jake Parks.
Here.
Leo Zuber.
Here.
Vice Mayor Michael Restusha.
Present.
Mayor Dean Euchre.
Here. Public discussion at this time is provided to the public to address the City Council on items not on the agenda. If you desire to speak, please address Mr. Mayor, and upon being recognized, come forward to the podium and state your name and address before proceeding in your subject matter. Anybody? Seeing nobody, we'll close public discussion and move on to the approval of the agenda as posted.
Approval of the minutes. Approval of the minutes.
Well, my thing keeps on jumping on me for some weird reason.
Approval of the minutes. Can we do them both together, Tom? Is that okay?
I'm sorry.
Can we move and approve both minutes at the same time?
Sure.
Okay. So I'll make a motion. We approve May 9th, 2017 and May 8th, 2017 City Council minutes.
You've got to do the motion thing.
Oh, yeah. Well, no, I was the mover, so I'm the mover.
I'll
Okay.
second that motion.
Now you can all go.
What are you doing?
So then,
Someone's got to hit it second.
Now, are we just waiting for Dean?
I've already voted. We're waiting for,
No, you haven't voted.
you started the vote.
I've hit it twice.
Okay, there we go. You're official.
Okay,
Wait.
So it hasn't voted
Oh.
yet.
There we go. Okay.
passes with a 5-0 vote.
That was tough.
Okay, moving on to the consent calendar. Leo Zuber wants to poll.
Half of it.
You want me to read all these?
You have to read real slow for,
Slowly, please.
1.1A, 1.2D.
no.
That's not slow.
I thought I was in charge.
No, Lisa is now.
Yeah.
1.2F.
Not that slow.
I'm waiting for the nod. 1.3J. 1.4C and D.
Yep.
1.4J and K.
And I want to pull all the rest. I want to pull a 1.4B, please, because I have a conflict.
With that, we can move for approval of the rest of the consent calendar.
Where do you do that?
So move.
Approval of the agenda.
As amended.
So move.
Second.
So now you wait. So then,
Let's get a vote.
Is there a roll call for this one, or do we just vote?
We vote. I moved, but there's not a place to vote.
yep, there we go.
There you
So,
go. Okay, I
Mike,
moved.
Click it. Okay.
Daniel second.
And Dan second.
If
In case anybody doesn't know, we're probably not as dumb as we really look, but this is rather new system that we got, and so I don't think it's really us, I think it's the system. You know how that goes, right?
Has to be the system.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Thanks for defending us, Dean.
Okay, so with that, we'll start with Mr. Zuber,
Approval
1.18.
of the consent calendar, Mr. Mayor?
Huh?
Approval of the consent calendar.
Oh,
We approved them, the agenda.
I'll move that.
The agenda.
Okay.
I gotta approve the. I'll second it.
Whoops, sorry, I hit second.
Oh, no worries.
That's all right.
Mike, I won't hold it against you in this
Okay.
one.
I might.
It passes with the 5-0. Okay,
They
now,
can see it up there.
Councilman Zuber.
My only question for 1.18 is we get this, I think, every month that shows what we've made, brought in sales tax and highway users tax every month. Do we know how much total we brought in this year and maybe compared to last year? So, I mean, we're almost to the end of the year, and whether we're ahead or behind.
Yeah, compared to last year, for sales tax, through May, we're ahead. For last fiscal year, 15-16, we collected about $1.99 million, and this year we collected just over $2.4 million.
Oh, wow, okay.
And then for highway user tax, it's a little bit the opposite. At least through April, we're down about $30,000. So through April last year, it was $270,000, and this year it's about $235,000.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Are we going to go through these one at a time and then vote on them, or do we
Yeah,
need
we
to
do
vote
it
on
all at
them?
once.
Nope, we have to do them individually.
There you go, Leo.
I'll make a longer list next time then.
Okay, so do we have a motion?
We have a motion. I'll second it.
Passes 5-0. Moving on. 1.2D.
1.2D. The invoice tells us who work for us and how much we're paying for them. But what are these people doing?
Yeah, these folks are doing the traffic signal design and electrical lighting design for the River Road intersection and the River Road widening projects.
So it's the design work.
Yeah, the design work.
Okay. Put the next one up there, Lisa. I'm ready to.
You gonna move that, Lee?
Yeah, I did.
I'll second.
Passes 5-0. Moving on to 1.2F.
My question about this one is, I thought we had a joint powers or a pool or something that handled all of our insurance. And then this one shows up. Why is it not part of the pool with everything else?
It is different. The pooled, we're a self-insured pool where we share in the liability of all cities within that pool. We did evaluate a couple options when we're talking about employment risk and employment liability. We looked at joining the pool, and we looked at going out to the market and purchasing typical insurance. Because we don't see so many of these types of claims, and other cities do experience some of the claims, we felt it didn't make sense to participate in a self-insured pool, so we went through the insurance route, and it was actually cheaper on an annual basis than participating in the pool.
Do we have the same level of coverage this way versus the pool?
They're not really apples to apples as far as coverage.
I guess my question is, if through some unfortunate circumstance we experience one of those claims that these other cities seem to find is this going to be enough to get us through it?
Yeah.
Okay.
When we evaluated the limits of it, we felt like it was enough. The other one, we have a self-insured retention, so you pay the first whatever.
Right,
This one,
okay. All
It
right.
was a little bit different how they set it up, but we did
Is this
look
put
at
out to
some of
bid?
The risk. I think, I can't remember how we did this. It's been 3 or 4 years ago. Do you remember, Lisa, if we went out to bid or the process we went through?
We didn't go out to bid, but we did get a couple of quotes.
Well, I mean, personally, I would suggest that at least every other year, we should probably reach out to, that, I heard there's a really good farmer's insurance agent in the community.
In Antigua.
We could go out and, we could talk about.
It's just a suggestion that because of the fact prices do fluctuate,
Yeah.
not that the Bureau of Defense isn't giving us the best shot, but it keeps them sharp too.
Yeah, before next year, before we bring that back, we'll go out through the process again.
Okay,
Get
thanks.
prices.
Thank you. Okay. You make a motion?
I did.
I'll second it.
Passes 5-0. Moving on, 1.3J.
Oh, that's way past all those others. I have a general comment about all these resolutions. Isn't there a way we can put them all together? I mean, there's 5 pages of,
We've always voted on them together.
I know, but we gotta
Yeah, we
list them
can't.
all separate? That's later. J, I knew about CDBG funds, but either I had missed it in the past or the fact that it was done this way. These home funds that are mentioned, do we get any of those?
Yeah, we get, every year when we get our CDBG funding, there's a home fund aspect to that. We get about $19,000 a year in home funds. They stay with the county, and it goes into a program that's administered by the county for the city of Ripon for down payment assistance for homes for income qualified people.
So if somebody wanted to find out if they could get it, we would send them to the county and
Right?
they'd work through with them?
They could stop by here. We can direct them to our contact at the county for those services.
Does it work?
It does and it doesn't right now with the housing prices like they are. It doesn't. They're not handing out too many home funds or down payment assistance. They're not getting a lot of people applying for them just because you have to be income qualified, so you can't make over a certain amount to apply for these funds. But the house prices, not just our communities, it's Stockton and Manteca seeing the same thing. It's just the house prices are too high. So when you can't make over a certain amount and you get 20% to buy a house, you just can't afford some of the houses that are on the market.
So even if they get the assistance, what's left as a balance, they can't afford the mortgage anyway?
Right.
Okay.
Make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve this one too.
I'll second it.
Passes the 5-0, and now we'll move to the next one in line, which is Vice Mayor Restuccio, 1.4B.
Okay, the reason I'm pulling 1.4B is because I am chairman of the Regional Transit District, and I do not want to vote on this since it's a contract, so I'm going to abstain. That's the only reason.
Does he need to leave the room?
No.
Nope.
Okay, fine.
I'll second it.
What he does need to do is disclose you did disclose the basis for the conflict.
Correct.
If this was a public hearing item, ordinarily we'd ask you to leave the room. Since this is the vote will be taken by the time you reach the back door, I think we're okay.
I'll use the side door, will that work?
It's already moved and seconded. I don't think you're that fast.
Okay, passes with 4-0 and a no vote.
One abstention.
And then moving on to back to Mr. Zuber, 1.4C.
This contract is only for the lights at the Fulton River Road intersection. Do I have that right?
No, this contract is for the infrastructure for the traffic signal poles, the arms, all of the underground, the curb return on the north east corner of the intersection. So this is the first phase to that project.
No stoplights, though.
Well, the traffic signal, yeah, the
But
stoplight
it will
infrastructure.
be non-functional until the River Road widening happens?
Correct, yes.
And do we know when that might happen?
We're trying to get our clearance for NEPA, the environmental clearance through Caltrans. We expect to have it mid-July, and then we obtain our authorization late July. So we're hoping by October we can get under contract.
And if we have another winter like last winter, it'll be done August of next year.
Eventually.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we'll make a motion. And second? Passes with the 5-0. Moving on to 1.4D, Mr. Zuber.
I think I understand what's going on here, but at the same time, I don't understand why and what the time frame is. Why are we giving, we got money from Modesto to help with the bus situation, but we're sending the money to COG because we didn't spend it. How's that work?
So this has been a very convoluted process, and what we've tried to do here is prevent us from losing the $64,000. So I was trying to be creative not to lose that. But this goes back to a CMAQ grant I believe we got in 2006 to purchase 2 buses, and it included 3 years of operation. When we got that grant, we were part of the Modesto urbanized area. So the way it was set up is the money came from the federal government to Modesto. And we used it to purchase buses and some operations. But the delta that we had left was $64,000. Modesto is at a point where if we don't spend all that money, that we're going to lose it. So we came up with an idea to transfer it back to SJ Cog. They would essentially commingle the money with our Measure K transit money, and it'll be available for a future transit project here in the city of Ripon.
And we're now not with Modesto.
Right, and now we're part of the Manteca urbanized area. So
That was
yes,
a smart move when they did that, by the way.
right. No, it was.
No,
but
I
just created
agree,
a little
but I
bit-
couldn't figure it out.
No, it's a very difficult, and it's been a very difficult process to get through. But I think we got into a good place where we're able to retain that money.
Okay.
So when they put it with the Measure K money, is it going to be a reduction in that amount, or is it going to be a $64,000 extra to that amount?
Extra. So we're
okay,
allotted,
okay.
a certain amount of Measure K money each
Okay.
year for transit. What we don't use, we track, and it stays available for
Okay.
future capital projects or
All right.
operations.
Okey dokey.
I'm waiting.
Can you please verbalize what your votes are as you're doing them?
What?
For the public, verbalize
Leo
what you're
moved,
doing.
I
and
moved.
Daniel seconded.
Passes,
Isn't that what the M&S means?
passes with a 5-0 vote. Moving on, Mr. Zuber, 1.4J. Is that what we just did?
Yes.
Sorry, I didn't mark it
No,
off.
we're doing it now.
Okay.
And we can do J and K together.
Good.
Can we do that? Well, I'm going to discuss them together. If you want 2 votes, you can have 2 votes. But my only question is, J is to accept the work as complete. K is to approve a change order. Is the change order assumed to be finished and part of J? Okay. So in other words, if we approve,
Correct, yeah. K was field changes that we encountered throughout the project that were completed. They were needed to complete that project. And so we came to council after
Okay.
for approval.
all right.
You
What are you putting up there, J or K?
She's going to do J first.
I'll move that we approve J.
I'll second that.
I don't know why she puts up with us, honestly.
Yeah, well,
I don't know why.
you should hear what she says about us when we're not around.
Passes
you know
with a
what?
5-0 vote.
Probably.
Now we'll need a
Do you wanna
motion
move
on
for the
1.4.
K?
I'll move that K also be approved.
And I'll second that.
And I'll I'll vote yes.
And that passes with a 5-0 vote. Okay,
How did L get up there?
I have no
It
idea.
had the right title, but it's,
Yeah,
Okay. I think we're done.
we are.
Okay,
We're
we'll
on to public
okay,
hearing.
see ya.
close the consent calendar. We're moving on to public hearing and zoning code text amendment. This is a public hearing to consider amendments to Title 16 Development Code by amending Chapter 16.20 Office and Commercial District Table 16.20. Mike, it jumped completely back to the start. So anyway,
There you go.
Industrial District Table 16.24.1. It's open to the public. Anybody from the public wish to speak on this issue? Or do you want to talk first?
I'd ask Mrs. Zeiderbark first so they know what we're talking about.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll give you a very quick
Okay, go
reminiscence
for it.
of the staff report here for you. Basically, staff was approached by a business looking at a parcel in the community commercial C2 district in town with an interest of opening a digital dental laboratory. As we started looking through the code, research and development code, it was discovered that the medical and dental and optical laboratories are not allowed in any commercial districts within the city of Ripon. The only allowable zones for these type of businesses currently in the code, the way it is listed, is professional offices, mixed-use districts with a use permit, and business park districts, which currently we have no business park districts or zones presently within city limits. It is planned for future land outside of our city limits within our sphere. After discussing and learning more about the new technology surrounding many of these type of laboratories and facilities, staff embarked on researching how and where other communities allowed such uses. Most other communities that we researched allowed these type of establishments not only in professional office districts, but also in light industrial districts and most commercial districts within a community. The nature of these type of businesses, especially with today's technology, has changed vastly from what it was in the past, where they used a lot of different chemicals in the manufacturing of products. Now it's mostly clean technology that you're seeing that are locating. It's very similar to what a professional office type use would be within a district, which professional office uses are allowed within commercial districts. So what is funny tonight is staff is recommending that we add such uses to the community commercial districts, C2 districts, and also the light industrial districts. And within the C2 districts, we would recommend that we add it with a use permit application. So the Planning Commission can verify where these locations might locate and look at the surrounding businesses to see if they would fit in with them. So it does give us some discretion of location on these type of businesses. And in some instances, these businesses do create retail sales tax. So they're not all non-tax generating type businesses. Some of them do produce that for us. So being in the C2 district is not detrimental in most cases. So the Planning Commission did review and held a public hearing regarding this topic, and they did take action on it with a 5-0 vote of recommending that City Council adopt the amendment to the zoning text. There are some items listed in there in the staff report for you. Hopefully you've had a chance to read through that. I won't go through all those, and there is a recommended action in there for you this evening. So I'd be happy to answer any questions, and this is, again, a public hearing. So.
Last one. There you go.
Mr. Restuccio?
Stuccio? Change my name now?
Restuccio?
So here's what I have to say, Ken. I know the technology's changed. We had a discussion with that right before the council meeting, and it's pretty clean now. It's something that's probably growing and well needed. The thing that you said, which I also read that I think is important, is it requires a use permit. And the thing I like about the use permit is that if in fact it becomes dirty and it violates the use permit, it can get pulled. So it keeps any business like that to make sure they comply with the requirements. So so those are just comments. I'm not asking any questions.
Mr. Zuber.
I do have a question. In the staff report, in the discussion about the planning commission meeting, one of the issues that was raised in their public hearing was whether or not everybody was noticed properly. And there's a note in there that says there's a list of the people that were noticed. I couldn't find it.
Yeah, that was included in the planning commission staff report. It might have not got attached to this to the city council agenda. I apologize for that. We went back through and verified. I think what happened on some of those is they get sent to a business, and quite honestly, they might get lost on a desk and not get given to the appropriate person. So we did go back through to verify that everybody within 300 feet of the parcel, which is the requirement, did get notified, and they were all appropriately notified.
So the person that raised the issue
Was
accepted
notified.
that? Okay. That's all. Thank you.
Anybody else? See nobody. Anybody from the public wish to speak on this matter? Good job. Do we have a motion?
I'll move that we accept the recommendation of staff.
I'll second.
Passes 5-0. At this time, I would like to acknowledge a young gentleman from the Ripon Eagle Scout Troop 414, Kai D'Arth. Did I say that right? Mr. D'Arth has made a donation for his Eagle Scout to, let me just read this to you so I don't mess it up. Accept the donation of a human sundial with plaque from Kai D'Arth with the Ripon Boy Scout Troop 414 to be placed at the lower level of Stouffer Park. Cost covers the purchase of materials and a small plaque that will be placed on site. I would just like to have that young gentleman stand up and we can all acknowledge him. Would you like to give a speech? You can give it.
That looked like a no to me.
Okay, thank you, young man.
Thank you.
Very nice.
I don't know if anybody's aware of it, but the Eagle Scouts in our community really do a great job. And the 12 years I've been on this council, I've seen several different projects that they do. And, I mean, they've done jobs from, like, the ballpark, completely redoing the benches out at the community center. I mean, I can't think of all of them. I'm getting too old to see now, but they really do a great job, and it's all basically, you know, their dedication and time, which there's no way that this $400 meets to what these kids do. It's a very wonderful thing. With that, we're moving on to, my computer is not telling me where I'm at, so I'm
3A.
I'm using my paper, 3A. This ordinance amends the Title 16, Chapter 16.2 and 16.24 use tables to allow for medical, dental, or optical laboratories in the community commercial C2 district and light industrial M1 district. I take this as you again.
Yeah, this is basically the ordinance following up with the action you just took. It's the first reading and introduction of it, so if you guys like, you can waive the first reading and introduce the ordinance.
That's what I will do. I will waive the first reading and introduce ordinance.
Second.
Passes with a 5-0 vote. Moving on, first reading and introduction to this ordinance adds Chapter 8.14 entitled Illegal Dumping Nuisance Vehicles to the Ripon Municipal Code. Is this you, Ted?
This would be me,
Oh,
I think. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Mayor, members of the council.
well, he's the one that always complains about it. I just figured he had it.
Ted, would you like to handle this? Did you, I think you might add some passion to the whole thing. All right, fair enough. His penalties would not be monetary, that's for sure. And would keep my office very busy. All right, so this ordinance, you have a very lengthy staff report. I don't know if you noticed this or not, but it's, Kevin and I spent a lot of time on this. It adds chapter 8.14, illegal dumping and nuisance vehicles, to the code. Basically, what we've done here is we've defined what illegal dumping is. We've made it unlawful. We've provided for penalties, which I would note are the maximum penalties allowed under the law, and would allow us to work off of that in enforcement matters as the case might dictate. Also provided is a recognition in the ordinance that this is often done with vehicles, and so there are provisions in the ordinance that allow us to impound and seize vehicles, and for the owner to get them back after a process is followed. So, I'm sure the council's had an opportunity to briefly go through this. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Otherwise, staff's recommendation is that the first reading be waived and the ordinance be introduced.
This is, does this need to go in front of the public?
This is not a public hearing. Obviously, if anybody wants to speak on it, they're welcome to do that. Otherwise,
Anybody
it's ready
got
for-
questions?
I do.
Mr. Zuber. Speaker.
I just want to make sure, and you mentioned it in your remarks. One of the things that this ordinance allows us to do is if somebody uses a vehicle to do illegal dumping, we can impound the vehicle. And as I read it, there's a process they have to go through to get the vehicle back.
Correct.
What if they choose not to do that?
We got a new 1987 Ford pickup.
1946 Jeep that we don't know what to do with?
Yeah, it would be disposed in the same manner as any other abandoned property would be disposed. We
Okay.
have that from time to time.
All right, thank you. I'm glad to see this.
Yes, me too.
Seeing nobody,
We all know it's a problem.
Yep.
Yep.
You just go out to county, you'll see how bad it can get.
I'll move that we waive the first reading and introduce the ordinance.
And I'll second that.
passes 5-0. Okay, second reading and adoption of.
Same thing.
Do I need to read all this?
No,
So basically ditto. You got
I just read this.
an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Ripon adding Chapter 9.38, urinating and
Defecate.
defecating in public places to the Ripon Municipal Code. I guess this is crappy job, but it's yours again.
Well, the council's already.
We already did it.
Yeah,
once.
yeah,
This is
okay.
the second reading.
This is the actual adoption.
Does this go along with
Okay.
with the first ordinance, the one we just passed? I'm
No,
just
this
kidding.
one we've
I'm
already,
kidding.
we
I'm kidding.
took care of, last council meeting.
Yeah.
Different ways.
Yeah.
So I will move
Yeah,
that we,
different ways.
do we waive the second reading and adopt?
No,
we
you just,
adopt.
you just adopt
Okay,
it.
then I move that we adopt the ordinance.
I'll second
We
that.
waived it before.
And then it goes into effect 30 days from
30 days
tonight.
from
Okay,
now.
I'll go to my next one.
Passes 5-0. Moving on, second reading and adoption of ordinance number 862. This ordinance amends chapter 8.28 entitled massages and massage businesses and
Here, I'll
table
read it for you.
16.201 entitled uses of office and commercial districts.
I'll move to
Quote.
For adoption.
adopt.
Second.
Also passes 5-0. And moving on to resolutions.
No, we got one more.
We got one more.
Oh, I marked it off. Sorry, I'm ahead of
You can
myself.
mark them off after we get done.
I know. I missed one meeting, so I have to be retrained. Okay, this is ordinance number 861. This ordinance adds a chapter 5.52 to the Ripon Municipal Code, fees for use of city facilities.
And it's a second reading and adoption, so I will move that we adopt the ordinance.
I have a question.
Well, we have a speaker,
We have a
Mr.
first and a
Zuber.
second, now we have
A speaker.
So we have a question first.
we do?
Yep.
Yep, sorry.
Yeah.
You shot the gun.
Don't worry, I'll get you home before dark. I have a question. Section 5.52.020 says that we're going to review and adopt the schedule of fees before this ordinance goes into effect. If this is adopted tonight, it goes into effect 30 days from now. When are we going to do that review?
We talked about this earlier in the day. You would do it at the next council meeting, which is 3 days before the effective date of the
Okay.
ordinance. So you'd have that opportunity, and in talking with staff about that, we thought it was a good idea to put all those into one place once we knew the council was committed to the ordinance.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
We move second, you gotta call.
Yeah, it's voted, just I'm waiting. Passes 5-0. Moving on to resolutions 4A. Determine if any council member will be attending the annual conference in Sacramento from September 13th to September 15th. And if council members will be attending, designating the voting delegate and alternate voting delegate to attend this annual business meeting being held on September 15th. Conference cost $525, hotel cost $160 to $210.
So it's Wednesday through Friday?
I'm not going. So I'm just making that.
Any volunteer or tiers?
You just save money.
No, we have to send at least one person.
I move that we send Leo.
I'll second that.
Okay, I want the check before I go. I'll go.
Okay, Mr. Zuber has volunteered. Does anybody have a problem with that?
See a lot of hands raised in the audience.
God, yeah, I figured I'd have to.
I'll volunteer to be his second, just for in case for some reason he can't go. And
Let's hope that won't happen.
well, yeah. But we probably should have a
Dean's
second
gonna get a call
person.
tomorrow. Sorry, can't go.
That was a mayoral,
I forgot.
mayoral move right there, in case you guys
So let's
didn't
make that
understand
move. Leo just dropped out.
Okay, you're done speaking, right, Leo?
Yeah, I was finished a long
Okay,
time ago.
Yeah.
so we need a motion for that.
You already made it.
We did.
Yeah, we
And
did.
seconded?
It's
Yeah.
not up there, though.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
gonna go.
I think I moved.
Mike, so you gotta click it?
I moved
Okay,
before Leo.
call for the vote. You have to vote. Okay, passes with a 5-0. Congratulations.
You on your way,
Mr. Zuber.
Dean?
Maybe I shouldn't open my mouth. Moving on, discussion item 5A, survey monument preservation fees.
That's Ken.
Ken?
No, that'll be me.
Oh, James.
Oh.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Honorable Council. Yeah, as you can see in the staff report, the city is now required by the state to evaluate construction activities for all permits issued within the city and determine whether or not those activities could potentially disturb survey monuments or property corners. And this determination has to be done by a licensed land surveyor. So attached to that staff report, you'll see staff has proposed a draft survey monument preservation policy. Essentially what this means for all grading, building, and encroachment permits that come in, the city would hire an outside licensed land surveyor, make the potential disturbance determination. And then if there is no potential for disturbing any monuments, no further action would be needed. That would just be noted on the permit. If there is a potential for disturbance, a pre-construction acknowledgement form would have to be submitted to the city. That would be signed and stamped by a licensed land surveyor. In this case, the applicant would hire a licensed land surveyor. They would go out, record the existing information of where the monument or property corners are, and then submit to the city that pre-construction acknowledgement form. And then prior to the final for the project, we would need a post-construction acknowledgement form from a licensed land surveyor as well, which basically is stating that they've put back any monuments that were disturbed throughout construction. If nothing was disturbed, they had to state that, and any of that information would have to be recorded with the county. And as you can see in the draft policy, the cost to perform that initial evaluation which is what the city would be responsible for doing through a consultant, of course, is $100. We're proposing that be passed on to each applicant, and seeking direction from council on whether or not to implement that fee, and then addressing any comments you may have with the proposed policy.
Vice Mayor Restuccio.
So James, so there's several questions. One is, have there been some issues in the state, before I jump up and say the state's sending us an unfunded so-called mandate to do all this kind of stuff, has there been issues in the past that's created this, or does somebody in the assembly, an engineer that owns an engineering company? I mean, I don't know what it is. I mean, surveying company.
Don't be blaming engineers.
Okay, surveying company. Because sometimes they're valid comments, but I've just never heard about there being problems in the past.
Yeah, there's a group, a local kind of group around here who has kind of got with the professional board of engineers, and have given them the explanation of why this is needed. Apparently, monuments have been lost, property pins have been lost. It's wasting time and money, but yeah, it's something that came from the board of professional engineers.
So if they're lost and somebody's doing something, don't they just reshoot the survey at that time?
You would think, yeah, most of that information has been recorded by a licensed land surveyor at one time.
So it's really not an issue, it's just something they're throwing out there to do because they want people to spend money to do something that's kind of unnecessary that wouldn't be done anyway, right? I mean, you don't have to answer your facial expression. Okay, that's all I want to ask. It infuriates me.
Mr. Zuber.
Well, the fee that we're charging is to cover the initial look-see, to see if there's a potential problem. If there isn't, that's it. If there is a potential problem, then as I read this, what is it, resolution, ordinance, or what you're going to come up with, somebody has to go back out there when they're done and verify that everything's still okay.
They have to.
Who pays for that?
Yeah, that would be on the applicant, and that would be a direct result of what the construction activity that they're doing is. But you're right, the potential costs for that could range anywhere from a couple $1,000s up to $10,000. It really just depends on how many of these monuments could potentially be disturbed or are disturbed. But that would be also on the applicant.
So for us, the only thing is that a licensed surveyor, when the job is finished, has to sign off on a form that we're going to provide that everything is back the way it was before they ever started.
Yeah, the
and
final.
It's the builder's problem to make that happen.
Correct.
Okay. I just don't want us walking into that problem and all of a sudden we've got $2,000 on the line because somebody messed up and we're fighting them to get the money back.
Just increasing the cost of housing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Engineer DeGraff.
Thank you. Yeah. Thanks for pointing that out.
That's why he gets the big bucks.
Yeah. We want to know, what if we didn't do anything? What if we just ignored it and said we're not gonna worry about it? What is the action to be taken against the city?
Yeah, potentially they could go after the city engineer's license for not being in compliance with the law.
Potential job openings.
So what do you think about that, Kevin?
What's that?
What do you think about this?
We should probably do the minimum we have to do.
We're looking for a C- on this one. I guess I'm not really a big fan of doing it. I mean, for every single encroachment permit, if it's a small project that is not going to affect it. I mean, someone wants to do a small project in the middle of a lot that we know there's not going to be a monument on, do we charge them a fee to say, hey, there's nothing there? I mean, it just seems kind of pointless. But determining, you still got to go through the process of determining whether it's there or not. So I'm not sure how you would do that. But if there's a big difference between a new subdivision that's creating new lots or tearing out old lots, and a guy who wants to put in something in his half-acre lot in the middle of it that's not going to affect anything. So I'm not sure if we can avoid that and
Like you said, that's kind of where we started with this, and that's the way we were trying to go forward, was really just saying, if there really is a substantial project coming in, that's where we're going to apply the law. And that's where.
Right, yeah, if it applies to a new subdivision or some sort of, major construction outside of the bounds of one lot, one existing lot, then that makes sense to me. If it's a project that's confined to an existing lot, I don't know if you can make that distinction or halfway through
We
it.
agree, and I think that was staff's initial approach. It was pointed out to us very clearly that that's not the way that the law is stated, and that's not the intent of the law. So.
So do we have a choice whether we vote on it or not? It just happens. The question is, do we
All
pass
we're
it on
doing
or
is,
not?
all we're doing is giving them direction tonight.
Right.
Well, the fee, if we want to pass that on to the applicant,
Yeah.
Leo, did you want something to add?
Just one thing, but now two. One, I think, I agree, I'm not 100% sold on this thing, but I think we need to be careful about exercising judgment as to whether we're going to apply it or not. Because it could be a single lot project, and if it happens to be that you're going to put a fence up around there, there's a potential you're going to disrupt every survey marker on that property. So we need to be careful about if we're going to try to carve it out. Having said that, you know darn well that the survey organization is going to be watching every city in this state. And the first time they let something go that violates this law, there's going to be one of them standing right over there telling us to do that again, and there's going to be a lawyer standing over there. So this is one of those things where somebody got the state legislature to do something, and they're going to make sure we do it.
It is, and there is no judgment at this
Right.
point. Right now, every permit that comes in is going through this process,
Okay.
regardless of our opinion. If there's zero possibility or not, every permit's going through this process.
I was asked to make it clear it's the surveyors, not the engineers.
With that,
So we don't need a motion,
don't
you
vote.
just need
They just need direction.
input
Yeah.
to go ahead and come up with something. I mean, you have no choice, you're going to have to come up with something, so.
Tom, can I ask a quick question? I'm not under, but is there some cities that have already worked through this, that as a group, maybe the League of Cities, that has some basic stuff that we can work with?
That's how we came up with this. James reached out to City of Turlock. And
Turlock, Lodi, they've got very similar policies in place right now. So.
Why recreate it if
Right.
it works? Okay.
okay, so moving on to discussion item 5B, general stormwater permit fees. Staff is seeking direction on whether or not fees should be adopted to fund the review and approval of regulated projects as defined by the city stormwater development standards and required by the city's stormwater permit with the state. Mr. Peace, that you
Yeah, this
again?
is me again. Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Another fees discussion. The staff report, it outlines the review and approval process for new and redevelopment projects according to the city stormwater development standards plan, which is required under the state stormwater general permit. Essentially, there's two types of projects that we see under the standards plan, the stormwater standards plans. You have small projects which disturb between 2,500 and 5,000 square feet of land, and then you have these regulated larger projects which are disturbing any land over 5,000 square feet. The submittal requirements to meet the standards differ quite a bit. The small projects, they're very minor. Staff were able to, it's kind of a check the box type thing. We're able to approve those during the plan check process with little to no time. For these larger regulated projects, apartment complexes, subdivisions, major subdivisions, larger commercial projects, the submittal process is much more elaborate. It requires the developers to implement various design elements to reduce the stormwater runoff for the project. And that review and approval process is very time consuming for staff. It requires extensive knowledge of the general stormwater permit. And currently staff sends this out to our consultant who we have on board, WGR, to review and approve. The cost for these services is typically $375 per project. and we're currently paying for that through the sewer fund. So tonight, we're seeking direction on whether or not a stormwater development fee should be adopted to fund the review and approval process for these regulated projects, these larger projects. If so, we would begin preparing a resolution, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Mr. DeGraff?
I don't necessarily have a question, but I think you nailed it. It's not so much the small projects, but the larger projects. From my experiences, they're very in depth, and they're going to continue to get more and more in depth. And it's not a simple review process from the standpoint of the requirements from the permit, the compliance with city standards and permit standards, and making everything function. It's getting harder and harder to make that happen, and it requires a lot of review and a lot of detailed design work that needs to be looked at. So, it's not going to get any cheaper, is what I'm saying. So I think it's definitely something worth, pushing that cost off onto the developer, because otherwise it's going to be a bigger and bigger hit to us. So.
Mr. Zuber?
I went back and looked at the consent agenda, and we're using WGR, right? And we paid bills totaling almost $15,000. And as I recall, looking at those, that's what those were for, is stormwater studies on projects around here.
Yeah, percentage of those are, most of these.
Is there a way that we can word the requirement? I have two questions. One, can we word the requirement that they pay actual costs rather than a flat fee? And number two, is it possible that one option they could be offered is they go out and get their own person, and as long as our person looks at the result and says it's fine, we're okay with that too? Does that do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, the first part I think we could easily do. They could pay for actual costs. I still think somebody at the city would need to do that final approval.
No, I'm understanding that, but rather than they pay WGR, if they have somebody else, the developer has somebody else who can do what WGR does, let them do it. But WGR is going to look at their result to make sure we're not, and I don't know if that's going to save money or not. I don't know if that's something you want to do. I'm just looking for options, because on the one hand, we're trying to keep fees under control, and yet we're sitting here tonight and we're dumping 2 more fees on top of people. So I just want to know that we've explored all options rather than just saying, boom, here's the money, here's the fee, pay it.
Sure, we could look at that and talk with WGR and get their thoughts
Okay.
as well.
I mean, I just would be interested, and the answer could be no, and I can accept that.
On that comment there, I would think part of the problem with doing that is if you allow them to go with another, it may be cheaper for them, but it's a low-budget company that says, oh, yeah, we're going to try and sneak this in. And if we're not doing the review on our end anyways, the city's the one that's ultimately responsible for the water quality.
I agree. I would want it reviewed.
So I would say on this, we're better off having it reviewed by someone that we know is doing everything. I think you're better off having our consultant saying, yes, this meets for the city's insurance purpose.
Any more discussion? Seeing none, we'll move on to.
Do you have enough? Okay.
Discussion item 5C, Policy Goals and Information Plan 2017 to 2018. Staff recommends the City Council consider approving the attached Policy Goals and Information Plan for fiscal year 17 and 18. Kevin, is that you?
It is, thank you. Early May, the City Council and department heads had a workshop to go over the policy goals and implementation plan for 2017-18, that's next fiscal year. Last year was the first year we went through this exercise. I think for staff it was a very helpful exercise to make sure the tasks that we were focusing on and completing during the fiscal year were in line with the priorities of the City Council. So we went through that again this year, actually with a facilitator, and at least in my opinion, I thought it was a very worthwhile exercise. As part of that process, we did talk about the accomplishments from the previous year and some of the upcoming challenges that we're facing. We also went through and updated the actual plan itself. That plan does have 5 different focus areas that we talked about. It had fiscal responsibility, economic development, community service, employee work environment, and then city utilities and facilities. Below that, we talked about a number of guiding principles under each of those focus areas. Those guiding principles really help staff, like I said before, determine the direction that we go in our day-to-day operations. We also discussed very specific actions that were to be undertaken this upcoming fiscal year for each of those items, and then also began the process of identifying future actions. So with that, I won't go through each of those items, but I'm happy to discuss or answer any questions of the plan that you have.
Mr. Zuber.
I just have one thing, and it's in the column for city utilities facilities. The last item in the white bar, patch all trenches within 6 months. This is my issue. We patch. I don't think the word patch is good enough. What I was talking about is I don't know how you describe it, but hot asphalt put in those holes, not the soft stuff that we put in there, and 2 months later it's gone, or you need new shock absorbers after you drive over it about 3 times. We need to put the road back the way we would expect it to be if a developer was doing that work instead of the city. I don't know how you say it, but it's got to be better than what it is now.
That is intent. We could change the language. My first thought was we could add it to restore to the original condition.
That's fine.
Prior to the work. We could add that in here, and we'll do that within 6 months of the trenching.
Other than that, I think the thing's fine.
Vice Mayor Restuccio.
So Kevin, what I wanted to say was, I know we went through this, and I see these on all the boards I sit on, and I got to tell you, I think you did a good job. We can, and I agree with Leo with what he said, but we could parse these words. We can say this thing 15 different ways on all this, but I think when you read this, people can read this and really get a sense of what we're going to do. And I would actually somehow get this on our website. Now, I will tell you that on the other boards I sit on, this is actually made to a bigger scale, and we actually have it where the public can come look at it. And I don't know if you can put something like some size out in the main lobby so people can come in and see it and read that, these are the goals and implementation plans that the city's come up with. And then I'd get it on the website if you can, or unless it's already there. But I think this is important stuff. And the good part about that is, we all sat around and think this is very good and concise, and we spent a lot of time on it. But there may be something we all missed that somebody can give us good input if they want to. So anyway, that's my comments. Good job.
No, I appreciate that, and we could definitely add it to the website and make a printout of it.
Mr. Parks.
And just to build off Councilman Restuccia's comments, this is really going to provide us a blueprint going forward, and it's really going to allow us a vision for not just every 4 years of getting, potentially new council members in to get them caught up onto what our goals are, what our vision is, where we're kind of going, but it's also to provide ourselves some direction too, because if you don't set goals, you won't achieve anything. So this allows us to at least give ourselves a measurable standard by which we're judging ourselves. Are we going out there? Are we trying to accomplish things? Are we trying to improve our city? Are we preparing ourselves for the future of what's going to happen in the next 5 years, 3 years, 7 years types of things? So I think this is fantastic that we've gone through and done this. And I know we'll probably do this again when, before my time on the council is up, and I look forward to it then, is to see what we've actually been able to accomplish. So.
Good job.
With that, we'll move on to, we have to vote on this?
No, this is just discussion.
It's a discussion item.
It says discussion action.
They all do, but we didn't.
I'll move to approve.
I'll second. I seconded it before you seconded it.
You know what? You're older than me, so I'll let you have it. That's why.
But you're better looking.
Passes with a 5-0. We didn't vote on the other two items.
No, because we were just giving them direction.
Says the exact same thing.
No, one says no action.
No
The other
action,
one
no
says-
action.
See, the no in front of it means.
That,
Go on one line.
there you go.
Eliminate the no, it means
Thank God,
action.
that's why I got a teacher administrator next to me. Okay, moving on. Discussion item 5D, 2017-18 budget overview. City administrator to provide an overview of the draft fiscal year 2017-18 budget. A public hearing and council action is scheduled for July 11th, 2017. Mr. Warner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple of weeks ago, I provided the city council a draft of the next year's budget. Tonight, I just wanted to go through some of the highlights of that budget. One thing I would point out before we start is that I do not include any changes to staffing in this or any capital replacement at this time. I'm planning to schedule a workshop with the city council in the next couple of weeks to talk more specifically about those items. So just point that out as we begin to talk about this. This is really just a baseline of continuing the operations as we did this last fiscal year. Before we start talking about next year's budget, I just wanted to provide the council and the public with an update with where we're tracking as for the fiscal year 16-17 general fund financials as it was compared to the previous fiscal year of that 15-16. So this is a graph you've seen before. The green and red lines on there, the vertical lines, are revenue and expenses each month. I won't go through each of those specifically, but you do see that for the majority of the months throughout the year, the expenses that we incur are higher than the revenue we receive. That forces us in a deficit situation in the general fund much of the year. What I really want to focus on is the blue lines. The light blue line, which corresponds to the right vertical axis of the graph, the light line is what we actually, the balance that we saw for 2015-16 fiscal year, and the dark blue line is what we've seen through May for the current fiscal year. So you can see in these last couple of months, we've really been tracking very close, or ended up very close to what we saw the previous fiscal year. In 2015-16, we experienced a general fund surplus of about $950,000. So I would expect by the time we finish off June that we'd be in a very similar situation with the 16-17 budget.
Can I ask a question on this?
Yes.
On this chart? So if I'm looking at it, it's kind of blurry, so help me out. So the 2015-16 balance last December, we had a negative balance, if I'm reading this right, of $1.2 million, something like that. This year, we have a positive balance of $600,000, so there's a $2.1 million turnaround.
It's to the right side. So
Yeah.
It would have been negative $500,000.
Well, in December, it's below the $1 million mark, and it's between the $1 million and $1.5 million, right?
It's right at the.
It's right at the.
December of last year,
December last year,
$1 million to $1.3 million.
it's about $1 million, $2 million, $3 million.
December,
Right here. So you're
Right.
negative $1 million, $2 million, $3 million.
Right.
And
But
right
this
now,
year-
we're positive. We were positive $600,000.
Right here.
We're negative
negative
500.
$500,000.
Negative 500,000.
Yeah, so it's plus or minus maybe
But
800,000.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Yeah.
But you're significantly up from last year.
yeah,
It looks
and,
like.
and the
Okay.
reason for that is I don't know if it's the county or the state. They mistakenly gave us additional revenue earlier in the year that they did not intend to. So you can see much of the year we were very positive.
Okay.
But it
Do we have to give it back?
I was gonna say, can
They,
you claim
they,
no backseas?
they offset it throughout the year. so
well,
we didn't
you
get
can
future
tell, look
amounts.
at the rise between, in 15-16, the rise between December and February.
Oh, yeah.
15-16,
Big time.
look at the rise in the same period of time this year.
Yeah, huge.
It's because we ended up higher to begin with.
Right.
Right.
So we've worked through that money now, and now we're back on track. So I wanted to talk a little bit about those surpluses. Obviously, those are very large surpluses and some of the reasons that we're seeing those. So this is a comparison of the actual expenses for 2015-16 and what is projected for 2016-17. That's the red line. The green line is, I call it recurring revenue, but this is the typical general fund revenue, the sales tax, the property tax, motor vehicle in lieu, franchise fees, et cetera. That's stuff we get every year. I wanted to focus some of the discussion on those other three colors on here. The blue is the redevelopment agency administrative fee that we're currently receiving. Right now, we're receiving about $250,000 a year for administering the closeout of the redevelopment agency. We're expecting and planning to receive that one more fiscal year, and we're expecting fiscal year 18-19 that it will be lower, probably on the order of $70,000, what we're projecting, and at some point that is going to go to zero. The yellow line on there represents development-related revenue. So in 15-16, we saw about $420,000. In 16-17, it's about $520,000. What I usually budget is somewhere between $150,000 to $200,000, and I come up with that number because I look back during the recession and how much we were getting during the times of very little development.
Are those building permits for the most
They're
part?
building permits, they're engineering fees and planning fees, all related to development activity. And then the gray line on there are one-time revenues we received from the state. In 15-16, we received about $510,000 for unfunded mandates. And then in 16-17, we received $325,000 from the closeout of the triple flip and a true-up payment that we received. So if you took the difference of what I normally budget for development-related fees and then the one-time fees, the $1 million, that accounts for about $650,000 of the $1 million. The rest of the increase is a result of higher than expected sales tax revenue. And we talked about that a little earlier when we started the discussion. We got on the order of probably 2.5 to 2.6 is what we're projecting for 16-17. I think I was assuming about $2.2 million in the budget. So that's the reason for the $1 million surplus. One of the things, and I meant to pass this out before the meeting, but I'll pass this down now, is every year we go through a couple different processes and talk about different funds within the city. We talk about enterprise funds sometimes we talk about capital funds with PFOP, sometimes we talk about enterprise capital funds. What I try to do here in this one figure is to provide a roadmap of all the different fund categories that we have here in the city. Are they all stapled together?
Yeah, they're all stapled.
Except for
And don't try to blame that on Trish because she's on vacation this
Well,
week.
that's the problem. It is her fault because she's on vacation. Left me alone to try to figure this out.
Give
very
Kevin a
much
stapler,
Trish's-
man, and it's all over.
So it's 2 pages for each of them on there. Sorry about that. But the way that Lisa and I talk about all the different funds we use here within the city, we break it down into operating funds, capital funds, and restricted funds. So I won't talk about each of these specifically, but I'll just point out with the operating funds, we have 2 categories that we use. It's the general fund that really funds the administration of the city, public safety, the parks, the recreation. And what we typically do with that, money is transferred from the general fund to the general capital fund. You see that a couple columns over to the right there. And that provides the most flexibility in the council the general fund provides the most flexibility to the council to move money. That's typically where it goes to complete the priority capital projects of the city council. The other operating fund that we use are the enterprise funds, and you can see below that, that's the water, the sewer, and the garbage. And typically what we do in that is we transfer money from the operating funds to the enterprise capital funds. And then to the right, we have 3 categories for capital funds. I've talked about 2 of them already, the general capital and the enterprise capital. But we also have the public facilities financing plan capital funds. These are really their own category, and we receive revenue from development to go into each of those accounts. And then there's expenses in each of those accounts, and that's only related to infrastructure that is intended to support growth. And then to the right, we have restricted funds, and there's quite a few different categories here. These are the benefit assessment districts, landscape and lighting districts that we talked about earlier tonight, street and roads, et cetera. And then also on here, we show the different reserves that have been set up over time. We have a cyclic contingency, we have a sewer wastewater treatment plant reserve, SSJID connection reserve, and a street and road reserve. So this is essentially it was intended to be a roadmap to all the different funds and at least give a very high level view of the relation between each of our funds. The sheet you have behind that is what Lisa and I are proposing to start next fiscal year with. You used to see a treasurer's report like this.
The one we got to figure out every time?
So we're proposing to...
The one we have to figure out every time?
We're proposing to replace this with that second sheet that you have on there.
But can you keep the part that shows all the cash
Yes.
at the
Yeah.
bottom? Okay.
That will still be on there. And then we'll provide this to council too, so that
Much
they go together. So just wanted to go over that before we start talking about each of these
Yeah.
funds.
So I don't want to belabor this, but who came up with this idea?
Well, the council, I think, we've got a
But
number
I
of
mean,
comments
who
from council.
designed it? I mean, this is great. I've never seen this. Have you given this out before?
No, this is our first time.
I think this is a great idea because, people ask all the time, what do you mean by capital funds and operating? What's this, what's that? And you try to explain it. This is a good roadmap. I think this is very good. I like that. Thank you. This is good.
Well, it was all Greek before, that's what we complained and complained.
No, this is excellent.
Oh, no, yeah, now.
I think this is really in response
User-friendly.
to council. As we talked about these, I think we heard very clearly the council was interested in something like this.
Well, you
So
did a good job, I
I
think.
appreciate that, and hopefully it's
Does
helpful.
Lisa get credit for that?
She does. Lisa and I definitely
I'm
worked
sure
on this
Lisa
together.
gets all the credit.
Kudos. I can't believe Mike needed help with numbers, though, to be honest with you. The guy's brilliant.
So just moving
I'm
on,
talking about this. This is good.
the overall city budget that Elise has drafted at this time, for 16-17, it was about $16.18 million. For what's being proposed in 17-18 is about $16.99 million. The general fund is the largest component of that, but you can see between the different fund categories, there's not a lot of changes at this time between the percentage that is being allocated to those categories. And I will point out that this does not include any of the transfer or capital items, really just the operations of the city. These are the allocation of expenses by the numbers. And again, this is citywide for all the departments. So you can see between the salaries, which shows about a 3.5% increase from what we actually saw in 16-17 versus what is being budgeted in 17-18. Burden, that is healthcare, retirement, workers' comp, those type of items. There's about a 6.9% increase between 16-17 and 17-18.
But the burden's about 60% of the salaries, huh?
Yeah,
That's CalPERS, that's retirement, that's medical, dental, all that stuff.
exactly. And retirement and healthcare were our two biggest increases in that. Healthcare, we saw about an $86,000 increase. In retirement, we saw about a $60,000 increase. We show the operational increases, which was about 4%. That's just largely inflation. And then you see the overhead transfers. ROPS is the closeout of the redevelopment agency and the bonds that we're paying, and then the capital projects. The general fund budget is proposed at $10.5 million. This is just a breakdown by departments. Police obviously is the biggest portion of that. Also, as part of the general fund, you can see it in this figure, and we're going to talk a little bit about it on the next slide. There's a number of community programs that are funded through the general fund. This is a summary of those. These have come out of a lot of discussions with the council in the past. And if there's changes that the council would like to see as part of this, let me know. But Chamber of Commerce donation is included in the budget, 4th of July staffing, Amma Blossom staffing. We maintain the senior center building, and we do provide the staffing that runs the programs at that facility. We do the maintenance on the museum downtown. The library, we do the maintenance for the library. We pay all the operations of the library, including the utilities and such, and we also pay a portion of the operating expenses. For the fire department, we have an agreement that we pay them for the hazardous material functions that they perform here in the city. And then with Ripon Unified School District, we have an agreement where we share in the operations of the aquatic center.
Kevin, can I ask a quick question? So I get all the numbers there. The only one that jumps out at me is the senior center. Does it cost that much every year to run the senior center? Is that because we have a lot of capital expenditures, or salaries are that high?
It's I could go back and look and get you a breakdown in that.
It's gotta be salary.
That much?
Yeah, it's
We have 1.5 employees there.
Well, we have 2 part-time employees, and then we have Public Works who does the janitorial.
So they're allocating their costs, so, okay.
Right. Yeah.
All right.
Plus that includes maintenance probably.
It does.
and
Yeah, maintenance,
PG&E,
repairs.
and
It does.
CapEx.
That's our building, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. The other part that we've talked about, part of the general fund budget that we've talked about in the past, and I wanted to provide the council and public an update, is the Midland Sports Park. This figure shows the expenses and the revenue over the years. This goes back to fiscal year 11-12 and all the way through what is being budgeted for 17-18. As you may recall, last year we looked at revenue 2 different ways. The way you see just above the gray line on the middle of the page there, where it says % of expenses recovered. The revenue above that is the actual revenue we received, and that's through the soccer field rentals, the baseball field rentals, and the concession stand. And you can see over time, back in 11-12, we were only recovering about 56% of our expenses out there. Over time, we've increased that number. In 15-16, we hit a high of 90%. We're expecting this current fiscal year to end up closer to 85%, and then for 17-18, is being budgeted to be a little bit less than that 82%. The other way that we look at this is looking at revenue if the city was going to be renting those fields as part of our recreation programs. Obviously, we get a lot of use from those facilities, and during that time, we're not able to go out and rent those and receive revenue. And even if we did charge ourselves rent, it wouldn't change anything in the bottom line for the city, so we don't do it. But the bottom option there, or the bottom scenario there, is if we were going to charge and book the revenue, and you could see that we would have recovered 70% of our costs or our expenses from 11-12, and for 17-18, it would have been closer to 96% of expenses recovered. So we've gone a long ways. We're hoping, even with the indoor soccer facility, that this will continue to improve.
The bottom numbers are speculation numbers, you mean?
No, that's if we charge this ourselves,
If
the
we're
same that we charge
As
other
the same as
outfits.
we,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
which would be,
Like Kevin said, it won't change for the city's bottom line either way. It'll just change the numbers on the page there.
Different bucket.
So, yeah, one bucket will have more than the other bucket now. So it'll probably
well,
would
it
have
could
been
make,
what,
would
general
it
fund.
potentially make one area look better than another area?
It doesn't change the bottom line.
Doesn't change
Yeah.
what we do, it's just how we pay for it.
It would be, it would
Would it
just be
make
paper.
Kai look like he's doing a better job?
So Kevin, I have a question. So when I take a look at the soccer fields, I mean, are some of those expenses allocated to the soccer fields, whether there's soccer there or not, just because they're there?
They are, and then other things happen over time. We've gotten a fungus in the soccer fields before, and has spent extra time aerating, and different things have happened. One of the things I will point out with expenses is for many of the years, we made assumptions of how we allocated that expenses. Now, Public Works actually tracks their time on their time card, and they bill it off to either the soccer fields, the baseball fields, or the fountain. So that is a change that we made, and we're tracking that much closer now.
So did we just make assumptions up to 2013, 2014, and then we start, that's the reason for the huge change there?
Yeah, I think in 15, 16 possibly is when we started actually tracking the expenses a little closer,
Okay.
if I remember right.
Well, the big difference though is in 14, 15 is when we signed the contract with TPR.
Yes,
Right.
that's right.
I mean, so those fields are dang near paying for themselves at this point in time. I mean, it's close.
Yeah.
Kevin, where does this stack up against other cities and their ability to recoup revenue based off of expenses? Are we doing better, about average?
Kai, you may have a better feel for that than I do.
Most cities don't have, every city's got different facilities. Most cities our size don't have a sports park or aquatic center, and those, and very few, if any, run in the profit. But we do a very good job of, coming close to breaking even on those types of facilities. Obviously, the rest of the parks in town aren't going to make any money, but our percentage is relatively high compared to other cities.
Plus, you got to be kind of careful to do a straight across comparison because we maintain ours very well, and if you were to take a look at one that doesn't, and it looks like they're recouping more, it's because they're not maintaining them as well either. So it'd probably be a little difficult to do, I would think.
When the indoor soccer field is completed, is there any kind of speculation on the revenue that will bring in?
We're doing a little research on that right now. We don't have any numbers. We could give, obviously projections, but we don't have anything concrete. Turlock's got a facility. There's one at Big League Dreams. I think those are the two closest ones to us.
Because, I mean, the maintenance, there's not going to be as much maintenance there because it's indoor and you don't have all the fields to maintain and...
It's just the one. It'll be the equivalent of one indoor field.
Yeah, but it's not grass.
Yeah, but
Doesn't need
that's
to-
expensive stuff.
It's going to be artificial turf?
Yeah.
Right.
That's very expensive.
Well, when you got to replace it down the line.
Well, it's expensive
we're-
to put in.
Well, but we're not paying for that. It's a donation. Right? All of it, right?
Yeah, that's right. The two parts of this that are not captured in this figure, one is, well, let me say this. We've been really trying to focus on getting people out to the sports park every day of the week. I think that was some of the reasons with the lease with TPR. Really, a lot of their efforts have been getting leagues out there and people out there Monday through Friday. But what you don't see on here is when people are out here, our businesses are getting more and more customers through the use out here. We've been to Esmeralda's on a Saturday or Baskin Robbins on a Saturday. The businesses are benefiting from our the use that's going out at the Midland Sports Park. But that's not captured in any of these numbers, but it's good for them. The other part of this is Kenny and I have talked a lot about Midland Sports Park, the traffic that's going out there, and hopefully at some point this being an attraction for a commercial development out there, wanting to also develop out there. So, I think we've done a good job starting to recover as much of our expenses as we recover. But to me, there's probably a bigger picture with this, with our local businesses and commercial development. This figure is just interesting. I always, I don't know if I enjoy looking at it, but I find it very interesting to look at general fund revenue prior to the recession, through the recession, and now coming out of it. So in 8-9, before the recession, we were seeing general fund revenue of about $10 million. Went through the recession, and at the low point in 10-11, we saw revenue down to about $8.5, $8.6 million. And then you can see from there, we slowly came out of it the next couple of years and kind of leveled off until 13-14. At that point, we had about $9.5 million of revenue. The last few years, we've obviously seen an interest in development. And like we talked about before, development-related revenue is part of the general fund revenue. And that's some of the reasons you've seen these larger years of revenue on the order of 11 to even up to $11.5 million.
Now, I would think if you were to compare that to other cities, I think that's where you'd see a big difference, because that's measurable.
Right.
I think you guys probably weathered it significantly better than other cities. I would
Right.
think.
And that's a great lead into this slide.
I'm thinking Dean Fay was on the council back then.
This slide is our major revenue sources, and we've talked about this before, and to Councilmember Restuccia's point, I think one of the things that helped us weather the recession was the property taxes and the stability of the property taxes in Ripon. You could see prior to the recession, we had 1.6 million, our high was $1.6 million of revenue. And keep in mind, it lags a little bit behind the rest of the economy, property tax does. So we saw $1.6 million. It dropped down $300,000 to the low in the recession, about $1.3 million. And then we came out of it fairly quickly. So
What's MV?
motor vehicle.
That's what I thought.
That's gonna go up.
Right.
That, we get that much money?
We're
Almost
getting
as
more,
much,
maybe,
almost
one
much
that's-
money as property tax?
Yep.
Wow.
It's about $1.2, $1.1 million.
It's gonna go up.
Yeah, and it has been going up since we came out of the recession. It's consistently been going up. The one part of this that we see the largest fluctuations is in sales tax. So prior to, one thing I wanted to point out with property tax, before the recession, we saw about $1.6 million in property tax revenue. Now in 16, 17, and 17, 18, we're back to that point after all these years. Back to the sales tax, that is where we see the largest amount of the variability in our general fund revenue. Prior to the recession, we saw $2.6 million. It went down to about $1.7 million. And then after the recession, we saw highs of $2.9 million. Obviously, when we're seeing $2.9 million of sales tax revenue, that was largely because of the price of fuel. That's when fuel was about $4 a gallon. But since then, it's gone down as well as the revenue has gone down. So these 16, 17, and 17, 18, we're expecting on the order of $2.5 million.
Is now that the new gas tax involved, is that gonna make that number go up, but we're not gonna really get any of it?
The price,
It won't be general fund money.
right, the price of fuel will go up, but you won't see it in the general fund.
Pulled off and sent here as road money.
Right.
You'll see the MV fees go up a little bit or some, because they increased the fuel fees in the new AB1 and SB1.
That I wasn't aware of.
Yeah.
It very well. Well, I don't know if we'll see.
How do they determine what motor vehicle in lieu fees are? What generates that money?
It sells, it's,
Value of the car is how it's originally done, but they just tacked on like $100 per car or something, or something.
Yeah,
But that's gonna be raked off for road tax too.
that was my understanding also, that we won't see it as part of the, you're right, it'll go up, but we won't see it as part of the general
You'll pay
fund.
more.
Or you'll get it through a different bucket?
It
Okay.
won't won't matter to the general fund because it'll be pulled off by the state before it's sent to us.
For now.
Well, for the next 10 years.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, for now. So,
But I thought they went to the state and the state gave it back to the cities.
You'll see.
Yeah, but they're not gonna get, this is general fund revenue. We're
So
not
that will
gonna
come in
get-
a different bucket
We're not
then?
gonna get that money from the
Okay.
general fund. It's gonna be sent to us as road
Street and
money.
road money?
I
Okay.
have a slide later that
Okay.
shows
Yeah.
a line item for that.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, I got it.
This is a similar slide I showed before. 17, 18, this just shows our more conservative projections, our budget, especially relating to development-related revenue. So at this point with the draft budget, it shows about an $85,000 surplus, but again, that assumes, I think I assumed $200,000 of development-related revenue for 17, 18. So just talking quickly about some of these other fund categories that we have. As far as enterprise funds, this just shows the income we received, the expenses over time, and then the transfers. These transfers are really what was recommended through our last 218 process. And you can see for the most part, we're in a good position with our enterprise funds. We are planning to bring Tom Pavletich back in November or December to review each of these funds and then make a recommendation to the city council as far as the rate increases for February 2018. So we'll review these a little closer with Tom at the end of the year. Street and road expenses, this is, shows the actual expenses from 15-16 and compares them to what's being projected for 16-17 and budgeted for 17-18. One thing that stands out on this slide is for the current fiscal year, the amount of time Ted's Public Works guys were able to go out and do street maintenance was reduced, largely because there's other areas where they focus their time. As you may recall, they fill out time cards, so we don't just allocate time to different areas. They allocate based off where they actually work. So this is just a summary of the different expenses, but it went from about $600,000 to 500, a little less than $500,000 for the current fiscal year. And this is the revenue. And if you recall, the difference between the expenses that we incur each year for the maintenance, the engineering, administration, landscape maintenance, the difference between those expenses and the revenue that we receive, that delta is what we use to go out and do the capital projects that we do here in the city. And those are the slurry seals, the overlays, et cetera. And then the other thing I would point out with this slide, and so you can see that that's slowly going up. And then in 17-18, I do show the revenue that we're receiving from SB1. 17-18 is a partial year, so we're receiving about $100,000. I have seen the projections for 18-19. If I remember right, it's on the order of $280,000, $300,000. So much less than I think some of the initial figures that they came out with when they first were proposing, the governor was first proposing the tax. They have been reduced.
So Kevin, what years did the LTF go down? Because it looks pretty stable there.
Yeah, it does, and it's been going up, and that's a function of the sales tax. So we talked, with our own internal sales tax, those numbers have been going up. That's the reason for the increases in the LTF also.
But what if the LTF gets directed other places?
Yes.
Like maybe rail?
Right. So I have not included any of that in here, but that's a really good point with the LTF. At some point, that is going to go away. Yeah. And you can see what a large percentage of our revenue that is. And,
it's a lot of money.
And when that happens, I mean, even with SB1, there's not enough money there to replace it, and it just really is going to limit our ability to go out and do slurry seals, cape seals, overlays, et cetera.
It is.
This is a summary of the maintenance that was completed. Obviously, with the crack sealing and pothole repairs, you can see the reduction in what you've seen in previous years, and that was indicated by the amount of expenses that we spent. And then we did spend close to $710,000 on the Cape Seal project that was done in the Spring Creek and Vermillion area.
LF?
Sorry.
Okay.
These are the proposed capital projects for next fiscal year. James did talk about these maybe a couple months ago now. There are a few design projects that the engineering department is going to focus on. They're going to look at doing the Stockton Avenue rehabilitation project. It does have some underground associated with it, but largely improving that road, which is badly needed. The River Road overlay project. And then we need to finish off the Well 12 rehabilitation project. That's a project that has been started. They have made improvements to the well itself of sealing off the upper stratus so the water with high nitrates are not migrating down. But before we could actually put the pumps in place and start pumping that, we need to make sure that we're not influencing the nitrate plume at the Ripon Farm Service. So we're going to have to hire a consultant at some point to come in here and advise us on the pumping rate of that well. As far as construction projects or purchases, we do have CNG bus number 2. This is something we've talked about before, but we'll be incurring those expenses next fiscal year. Same with the CNG garbage truck. It's the same project we talked about before. It's just by the time we get that truck delivered, we'll incur many of those expenses.
3 new trucks and we're going to buy another one?
No, the same one we talked about last year.
Kevin, when you talk about CNG garbage truck local funding, that means from us, right?
Yes.
We can't get more of a subsidy than that being CNG?
Nope.
Yeah, they use the benefit cost ratio, and the less.
I mean, we get all our buses for free at the transit. We pay $1 million each, and we don't pay for any of that stuff. It's all grant.
Right.
because it meets the requirements. Maybe this doesn't quite meet that requirement.
Yeah, in transit, we're in the same situation. You know, we're getting 100% of our transit buses funded too.
Aren't your buses electric?
Well, the electric ones, even the diesel ones we got, the current ones we're getting are electric.
Is it
yes.
100% funded from CMAQ though?
No.
You know, there's different funding.
Yeah,
I can't remember off the top of my head.
Other project we have on here, you talked about it earlier, the River Road project, the intersection, well 19. We're getting close to beginning that project. There's a number of local wells nearby. We've spent some extra time going out and surveying those wells and making sure that by us installing well 19, we're not going to cause additional problems to those wells. I briefly talked about well 12, but the construction of that is on here. We did receive grants to do a safe route to school to Parkview. That's 100% grant funded. And
When's that going to be done?
This coming fiscal year.
Where's that at?
During 17, 16, or during 17, 18?
Is,
Okay.
that's the crosswalk.
No, I know what it is, but we've been talking about.
about it.
That has nothing to do with, what's,
Yes.
where that new housing potentially
No.
could be going in? That's, because they
Is
got
that-
a,
What's the name of that street?
Calhoun.
Calhoun. It just runs down Calhoun from River Road, from the school south.
And then last project, the Stockton Avenue parking lot. That project actually is out to bid. So we'll incur those expenses also in
That-
17, 18.
okay.
Yeah,
Boy, that needs it badly.
yeah.
Long time.
And then to the right there, you see the different funding sources. Again, I try to use the same verbiage that I used in that roadmap blueprint I handed out earlier. So
So I got the top two projects, the Stockton Avenue rehab and the River Road overlay. That's just planning money.
yes.
Do we have any guesstimate of when planning may turn into a new road?
For the Stockton Avenue Rehabilitation Project, this is one, if you recall, we did have grant money to go out and do that project from COG. Because of some of the financial problems with the state, that money was pulled back. We have talked to COG staff about this project, and we've been asked to, if we're interested in moving forward, that we should move forward with the design now, get it shovel ready. So it gives COG some ability to try to get us money, and they want us to be ready when the money's available.
That road's
So,
in terrible, terrible shape.
yeah,
You can't even hardly drive down it.
no.
So what about the River Road overlay? That's basically from Fulton to Jacktown, isn't it?
No, that's from North Ripon to Jacktown.
North Ripon.
Whoa, the whole thing?
From the roundabout,
In the areas that's needed,
that wonderful round.
Okay.
that's the length of that.
So that 2.466291, do we have that?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Okay,
Yes.
all right.
It's the 2.535 that
That's
we're waiting on some of that.
Right.
the Joker.
But, I think that's a good point, though. I think we've really been trying to leverage our own internal money, and, you can see here about half of it from what we have going on is grant funded.
Well, if we can match dollar for dollar, that's not a bad deal.
Right.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
So with that was the overview. Again, I'm going to schedule a workshop, and we'll talk a little bit more about some of the staffing and capital replacement items, but just wanted to provide this baseline to begin those discussions.
Good. No action, by the way.
Thank you, Mr. Mike. With an A.
Thanks, Kevin.
You're welcome.
Moving on,
Reports.
reports. Police Chief Armande.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, Honorable City Council, and to the community members that are left. I have two items. This Thursday at 7 a.m., the police department, along with some other agencies within the county, alcohol beverage control, and some members from City Hall staff will be participating in the Northern California Special Olympics torch run. We will start at 7 a.m. again at the Arch on South Stockton Avenue. We will proceed down Main Street and on our way to the Dual Vocational Institute in Tracy. Other than that, we also have a reserve police officer being sworn in tomorrow at 10 a.m. in the Department Emergency Operations Center, and everybody's welcome to attend.
Thank you. What's your name?
Ted.
Ted?
Yep.
Sorry. It's been a long week, I can tell you. Too many phone calls.
Just real quick, just to update the council on our last month's water usage. We were down a decrease of 26.43% from 2013. A little lower than what we had last year at this time, but the weather's been a little bit different. So we're still in the ballpark, towards our goal.
How much did we have last year?
Last year, I think we were at 36%.
Better get that little car moving a little faster out there.
They're still out issuing warnings and citations.
I see all kinds of violations,
I know.
but I don't say a word to Mona.
It's like the whole town's got to start all over. That's amazing to me.
Yeah, I think there's a thought process that the drought's over and that people can get back to the normal, their status quo. Unfortunately, our regulations are still in effect, and we still are enforcing those.
Does the gentleman that's driving around in that car, does he have or I should say, why does he have a spotlight on his car, on that vehicle?
He doesn't.
Well, because the only reason why I'm asking, because I had a client say that at midnight he was flashing his spotlight throughout their house. I don't know if you got a complaint on that or not.
We have had one complaint, and what it's turned out, and we're working on changing policy. He was attempting to try to find the address. In the middle of the night, it's very difficult to find the address.
Well, because the client don't live there, it's a rental, but his people were complaining they have a baby, and I think they were more scared than anything because somebody's flashing this spotlight through their house, and it was they were in the wrong because what happened was it was 12:01, and I guess you're supposed to stop watering at 12, and their sprinkler kept going, and so this guy was out there spotlighting through their house. They were a little bit perturbed.
They got the message.
We did.
I thought it was a little tacky.
Yeah.
But anyway.
We were working on that. It's a fine. We have to establish the address, and it's difficult sometimes, but we're working on that.
If that would have been at Mike's house, that spotlight probably would have been shot out. Mr. Kai Stevens. Mr. Ken. Mr. Peace.
Real quick, Kevin just mentioned it. Stockton Avenue parking lot's out to bid, that project, and we should have results at the end of the month.
And the garbage cans are taken care of? Cool. No, Kevin? Mr. Parks? Mr. Zuber?
Let's see, by the next council meeting, it'll be too late, but did we resolve all of the fireworks fines from last year? Because we're now within 3 weeks of doing this all over again.
Yes and no.
Oh, God.
We actually had, the cases aren't all resolved because we had some that failed to appear. So those have gone out to warrant. And actually, we had a gentleman Monday turn himself in on his warrant. So eventually he'll be going to court.
But we are ready for July 4th, 2017 to go
Yes.
back out and do it again?
Yes, we are.
Good. That's it.
Mr. DeGraff?
As usual, thank you to the members of the public for being here. Appreciate it. Thank you guys all for everything tonight. Other than that, nothing.
Vice Mayor Mike.
Yeah, I have about 6 things I want to bring up.
Nothing
to report.
I just wanted to make mention that if anybody's not aware, what is it? June 24th, the Ripon Chamber, who's putting on the fireworks, is doing a fundraiser. We're having a barbecue out at Michelin Park. It's $12.50. It's going to be a family event.
Stouffer
Is it-
Park.
Stouffer Park.
Oh, it's at
And
Stouffer?
you're celebrating my birthday.
I guess I should have looked at the tickets.
No, I'm gonna be in both places at
The
once.
event's at Stouffer Park?
It's at Stouffer Park.
Oh, sorry. I should have looked at my tickets.
You
But
want me to bring
anyway,
it up?
if you could put that in the paper, it would be nice. And the tickets are $12.50 a piece, and that's basically all you can eat. And they're going to have some fun and games and everything. And it's supposedly, hopefully, help pay for the fireworks, which cost about $20,000. And with that, meeting adjourned.
You gotta ask for input on the
Oh,
closed
and then I
session.
was going to bring that up afterwards, sorry. I was warned too, see? Let's see, is it up here? Okay, we are going to have a closed session, so at this time it's provided for the public to address the city council on the closed session matters. If anyone wishes to speak upon being recognized, please come forward to the podium and state your name and address before proceeding into your comments. Seeing nobody? Anybody want to talk? You sure you don't want to say something, Leo?
I don't.
Close the meeting and
We'll
move
report
on.
out after closed session. And we will report out.
Okay.
When are you moving, when are you gonna start? When are you starting?
I thought the